time out of
No
your
doubt.
day to
Thanks
come
for
and
having
sit
me, man.
and bust it up with me, talk basketball. It's always a pleasure
Barbershop talk, man. We
and
good.
always great insight. Unfortunately, we had Ant was supposed to join us, Ant Gilbert. Unfortunately, he could not make it, but I'm sure he's with us in spirit, and he will be here as soon as we can get him here. He's a good friend of the show, good friend of mine. He's always willing to come. So shout outs to you, Ant. You know, we totally understand, you know, the situation and everything with that. Now, I want to mention something before we get into a little bit of NBA, and it's something that I thought was a little interesting again, and I say that a lot. I find stuff interesting because I'm always looking at stuff. But today marks 22
more
years.
facts? You want more facts on it?
Well, yeah, 22 years ago, the most famous facts in NBA history was sent. That facts read, the following statement, and I quote again, the following statement was released today by Michael Jordan through his personal attorney and business manager, David B. Falk, chairman of Falk Associations Management Enterprises Incorporated. FAME is the acronym for that. It's located in Washington, D.C. In response to questions about his future career plans, I'm back. So,
well, today Mark said,
Yeah.
Mark said, I'm back, please.
22 years ago,
Wow.
that fax was sent in. That's a long time.
Hey,
It's a long time. But that was epic.
You had
It might
people
not have
turning
been
back into basketball.
I'd say epic then.
People
But
turn back into
now, if you
basketball.
look back, epic.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. I'm back. And, well, we all know what came after that. We know what happened after that. So, moving right along, and we've been talking off air, we talk about my beloved Sixers. I am one of the realistic fans behind the Sixers, and, you know, I'm just enjoying what's going on right now. Looking forward to the future because I see the possibilities. We spoke very briefly, or I mentioned the way that they've been playing the last month or so, and like I said, especially the last two games over the weekend. It was the Dallas game, I think that was Friday, and then the Boston Celtics game yesterday. Keynote for the Dallas game was the return of the recently traded Nerlens Noel. But if you saw that game, Sixers didn't look like the Sixers that we are used to seeing. They handled Dallas, and people talk about their shooting. They have their lack of shooters. Again, we go back to what we talked about with the tournament. It was their night that night because it looked like they couldn't miss a three if they tried that particular night. And they played great defense that night. And again, I saw a lot from the kid that we just mentioned before we came back on there, Justin Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And let's stay there for a second. He ended up with 19 points that night. But one of the things that you mentioned, Jay, is that he plays defense.
The Sixers don't have anybody like Justin Anderson. They haven't in the last few years, and that's, lack of a better word, he's a dog.
Yep.
He's a dog on defense, and you need a pit bull sometimes to protect your house, and that's what Justin Anderson is. And he comes in with a certain type of swag about him, UVA grad, and of course he was also playing against his team that just traded him.
Yep.
And so you know he's gonna come in with a different chip on his shoulder, like y'all gonna let me go? Okay,
Exactly.
so I'm gonna show you.
Show you what you're missing.
You know, he hails from Baltimore, and you know, he ain't no
Beltway basketball.
Yeah, he built differently.
Yeah.
He built differently, and I like it. You know, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day. He was saying how much he loved the diehard Sixers fan, how much he loves having Justin Anderson because he doesn't do what other people do. You know, if somebody, let's just say somebody fouled Dario the wrong way, Anderson's gonna be right up in that dude's grill.
Yeah, I agree. Like you
Yeah,
said,
that's the type of guy. That's the type of person you guys need nowadays on NBA
Exactly.
rosters. You need somebody who's gonna protect your players. I don't think OKC has anybody like that right now. But besides
Yeah.
besides Russell Westbrook, there's nobody else who's gonna have that dog in him and be like, yo, get up out of here.
Yeah.
And that just brings a different element.
Yeah, it
to the
does.
Sixers.
And you know, like you said, that's a guy that you want on your team no matter what. It's like, yo, you ain't got to score no points, you ain't got to get no rebounds. But I know that, like you just mentioned, somebody knocked Dario down the right way. Let's change it real quick for all intent purposes. You know that Mr. Anderson is going to be in that picture somewhere, some kind of way.
Yeah, no question.
And the offense is not too bad. Anyway,
He can play. I mean, he played. He was a
and I
double-digit
think,
scorer in college.
yeah, I think he'll be around next year because, like you said, he's got that dog in him on the defensive end. He's got that bully, something that we haven't had in a long time. I can't even remember. I mean, I could loosely say Aaron McKee was probably one of the last ones, and that's just thinking very quickly. But again, it's been a long time since we've had that, like you mentioned, and you need that
Yep.
on your team, especially in today's NBA.
I go back to when he first got traded. They played the Knicks, and he's guarding Carmelo Anthony on the wing, and he's all up in Carmelo's face, and they're jaw jacking a little bit. And that probably had something to do with being, back in back in Baltimore. But the fact that he was out there pushing him around, playing some aggressive defense, and I can hear the crowd going a little crazy, like, yeah, all right. They probably didn't even know, like, who's Justin
Yeah,
Anderson.
who's this dude?
I guarantee you people were like, when they traded him, like, who's Justin Anderson,
Mhm.
And he came out and he showed people that night, and he had like
Yes, he did.
17 that night.
Yeah, 17.
So, I mean, the young man could play. I love what he could do. I know his trainer out in Baltimore, and I've sent him some texts and say, hey man, you've done a great job with the young man, and he's doing his thing. And as a trainer, there's no better feeling to have guys that you train, perform on the NBA level.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. I like the fact that not even so much that I like him as a player, and he strikes me as one of those guys, like I said, a basketball player,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm going to come in the game and I'm going to find what I need to do. So we on the court playing and getting a couple fouls, the ref ain't calling them right, or what I look like, a little suspect. I know coming into the game, oh, I got my teammates back. Y'all gonna get some of them back. And if need be, I may need to hit a shot or two. I may need to get a dunk here and there. And like you said, when we talked about the tournament, it may be that spark. I may come in and get a block shot, turn this thing around. It happens all the time, like we said, it always happens. But you have to have those kind of guys on your team, because if you don't, goes back to that big people beat up on little people, so to speak. And you'll have people imposing their will.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you'll have guys who will get that bounce in their step, get that adrenaline. When you need that Justin Anderson to just give them a little, in the flow of the game, give them a little shot here or there, let them know, yo, there's still players out here. Like, it ain't that sweet. It's not that easy. You need that. And again, like you said, and I said, we didn't have that. But I love the way that they're playing right now. And at one point with Joel Embiid, the process, they were making hints at possibly getting that 8th spot. I didn't want us to get that 8th spot this year, because it would have probably been a sweep, and wouldn't have been, in my opinion, a good experience for the team right now.
Not necessarily. Anytime you make the playoffs is good for your franchise, and even if you're going up against Cleveland, which they play Cleveland pretty well throughout the
They
year.
did.
You know, they
You're
give,
absolutely
for
right.
some reason, they get amped up and they play Cleveland pretty well, but, you know, obviously, you don't have, Embiid, so that hurts. Cause he seemed to play, the games that I went to and watched, you know, he played very well against Cleveland, so. But even if you do get swept, let's take a look at Milwaukee, you know. It gave them a certain kind of bravado, it got them a little bit more confidence now. Like the young fella, I'm not even gonna try to.
The Greek freak. The Greek freak, yeah, that's all we call him.
Yeah, he's on Antetokounmpo or something like that, but he's on another level, you know. But you know, that got him. Hey, look, I can hang with these guys.
Right.
I could be elite.
Right.
I could be the star of this team. You know, it gives you guys a little more, even though you got swept.
Right.
It gives you another feel that, all right, look, we got swept, we got to the playoffs. This is what we need to do in order to get better, to take this next level, to win a round, you know, and go to round 2 of the NBA playoffs, you know.
Right.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Would I like to see, you know, I think we kind of got spoiled here as Sixers fans with an early start, getting a couple quick wins, getting a couple quality wins against some quality teams.
And a couple quality games.
Yeah,
even.
yeah.
You know, like even though we didn't get the wins, perfect
But-
example, like you said, that Cleveland.
But Embiid, you know, we got a little false sense of hope a little bit. And we got, you know, chest started picking up. We
Right.
started talking about playoffs, and you know, and then he goes down, and then it goes back down to the
Yep.
drain. Like, oh, we weren't gonna make it anyways. But
Right.
you know, that's would have been nice to see Ben play a couple games, just to get him acclimated, familiar with the NBA
Right.
speed, the game, the pace, and but you know, they got stuff to
Got a lot to
improve
build
on.
on.
Yeah,
There's lots
to
to
think
build
about,
on.
and the future's bright, man.
Yeah.
Man, future's bright.
You know, folks, this is exactly why I have guys like this in my phone, their contact information in my phone. This is why I stay in touch with these guys. Because, you know, I led in with I didn't think that we should make it. And it was a perfect setup for me. Because I understand both sides. But, again, this is why I have these guys on the show talking with me, because you get so much, you know. You don't get just well, they shouldn't have made the playoffs. You get the real aspect, the real truth behind the scenes of logical basketball thinking, I like to say. You know, and, you know, I think what James just said is perfectly correct. And, you know, like I said, I led in with I didn't want us to make it, and like I said, it was the perfect setup. But and he's laughing about it now, and I don't mean a complete setup like I purposely said that I didn't like it. No, I truly felt that way. I said, but it was still, for lack of a better phrase, in essence of conversation and debate, the perfect setup, because he went the total different way, so to speak. But again, like I said, I understand both sides. It's just my opinion. And that brings me back to, like I always like to say, when people talk to me and they say, well, who's your top 5 of all time, or who's your top 5 right now? And I give them my 5 or whatever, and then they say, well, why you got him in there? Like, he ain't. No. Let's backtrack and remember what you asked. You said my top 5. And it always brings me to the episode of, I think it was First Take, when I saw Dr. J on there, and they asked him about his top 5. And when he gave his top 5, there were some names that, as a fan, you would have thought Dr. J would have put in his list, because some of these guys he played against, so he had firsthand. But when he gave his 5,
Right.
and I think Michael Jordan was not in his top 5.
Right.
There was somebody else that wasn't in his top 5. But his explanation was, when you ask me my top 5,
It's my top 5.
I have to go on what I know.
Yeah, it's my top 5.
So I know more than Michael Jordan, LeBron James,
Right.
and I can go back as far as Elgin Baylor. He said it takes me back to when I was a teenager in high school,
Right.
when I got into loving the game. I started loving the game. these are the guys that I saw, so this is what I know.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a 80s, 90s basketball dude, very short into the 70s, but
Nah, that was
more
basketball.
so
man.
80s, 90s.
Yeah.